I didn't find out the way you'd expect. No lipstick on a collar, no late night confession, no dramatic message popping up on his phone. It was quieter than that. Worse, because for a long time I trusted him completely. We had been together for 7 years, married for 3, and from the outside, everything looked perfect. He had a good job. We had a nice apartment. We hosted dinners. We took photos that looked like we were happy. And I believed we were. That's the part that still gets me. Because when something breaks like that, you don't just lose the person, you lose the version of your life you thought was real. I remember the exact moment. It started to feel off. Not wrong, just different. He started coming home later. At first, it made sense. Work was busy, deadlines, new projects. That's what he said, and I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? He had never given me a reason not to. Until he did. It wasn't one big change. It was small things, tiny shifts. The way he stopped asking about my day, the way he started keeping his phone face down, the way he smiled at messages, but never shared them. You notice those things, even when you try not to. And I did try. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was being insecure, that I needed to trust him. So I stayed quiet. I didn't ask questions. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that person, the jealous one, the paranoid one, because once you cross that line, you can't go back. But the truth is, something had already crossed it. I just didn't know it yet. The night everything changed was completely normal. That's what makes it worse. We had dinner together. We watched something on TV. He laughed at a joke I didn't even understand. And for a second, it felt like everything was fine again. Like I had imagined all of it. Like we were okay. And then his phone lit up, just for a second, on the table, right in front of me. He didn't notice, but I did. And I wish I hadn't. Because in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life ended. All it said was, I miss you. No name, no context, just, I miss you. I looked at him, waiting for him to pick it up, to explain, to say anything, but he didn't. He just kept watching the screen, like nothing had happened, like nothing had changed. And that's when I understood something. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was something that had been happening right in front of me for a long time. I just wasn't supposed to see it. And suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights, the distance, the silence, all of it. It wasn't work. It was her. And the worst part, I didn't even know who she was yet, but I was going to, because in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The truth is always more dangerous when you let it reveal itself. I didn't say anything that night, not a word. I just nodded, pretended I didn't see it, pretended everything was normal, and he let me. That was the first thing that made it worse. He didn't even try to hide it better, because he didn't think I knew. Or maybe he didn't think I would do anything about it. I went to bed early, at least that's what I told him. I'm tired, simple, normal. He barely looked up from his phone. Yeah, me too. But he didn't come with me. He stayed in the living room, and that told me everything. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, not crying, not thinking, just listening. Every sound, every movement, every second. And then I heard it. His voice. Low, careful, different. Not the way he talked to me, not the way he talked to anyone else. Softer, warmer, real. I sat up slowly. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It felt steady, cold, like something inside me had already accepted it. I got out of bed, walked to the door, opened it just enough. And there he was, standing in the kitchen, phone to his ear, smiling, smiling. I think that's what broke something in me. Not the call, not the lie, the smile, because I hadn't seen him smile like that in months. Yeah, I miss you too. Quiet, almost a whisper, and that was it. That was all I needed. I didn't stay. I didn't listen longer. I didn't need to. I went back to bed, lay down, closed my eyes, and for the first time, I didn't try to fix it. I didn't try to understand. I didn't try to justify anything, because suddenly, everything was clear. The next morning, I acted normal. I made coffee, asked about his day, smiled when he spoke, and he believed it. Of course he did, because people like him, they don't expect consequences. They expect forgiveness, silence, denial, and I gave him all of that, at least on the surface. But inside, something had already shifted. I stopped being his wife that day and became something else. Someone watching, someone waiting. I started paying attention, not emotionally, not desperately, strategically. His schedule, his habits, the way he checked his phone, the way he left the room to reply to messages. It wasn't random, it was a pattern. And patterns are easy to break. I didn't rush. That was the most important part, yeah, because if I confronted him too early, he would lie. And I needed the truth. All of it. Not just enough to hurt, enough to destroy everything he thought was safe. A few days later, I got my chance. He left his phone on the counter, unlocked. Just for a second. That's all it took. I didn't hesitate. I picked it up, scrolled, and there it was. Her name. Saved as something simple. Nothing suspicious, just a name. Like she was normal, like she belonged there. I opened the messages, and the world didn't explode. No drama, no noise, just words. Casual, familiar, intimate, plans, memories, jokes I had never heard, and one message that made everything stop. I wish I didn't have to hide this. I stared at it, read it again and again, because that sentence, that one sentence, told me everything. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't ending anytime soon. This was real, and he was choosing it every day over me. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Same angle, same position, like I had never touched it. Then I stepped back, took a breath, and made a decision. I wasn't going to ask him why. I wasn't going to give him a chance to explain, because there was nothing left to explain. The truth was already there, clear, ugly, final, and now it was mine. And so was what came next. I didn't cry. That's the part people don't understand. They expect tears, screaming, breaking things, asking why. But I didn't do any of that. Because once you see the truth that clearly, there's nothing left to question, only what you're going to do about it. And the next few days, I became someone else, not colder, not angrier, just focused. I stopped reacting, started observing. Every detail mattered now. When he left, when he came back, what he wore, what he said, even the things he didn't say. Because lies aren't just about words, they're about patterns. And his pattern was obvious. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. Those were the days he worked late. Those were the days he came home different, lighter, like he had already lived the part of his life he actually cared about and was just returning to the version he tolerated. Me. I followed him the first time on a Thursday, not closely, not obviously, just enough. He didn't go to work, not even close. He drove across the city, parked in front of a building I had never seen before. Modern, clean, expensive, not the kind of place you go by accident. He checked his phone, smiled, and then he went inside, like he had done it before, many times. I stayed in my car, hands on the wheel, breathing slow, controlled, because this was the moment, the one where everything becomes real. I waited 10 minutes, 20, 40, and then she walked out, not him, her. At first, I didn't even realize. She looked normal, not dramatic, not flashy, just someone you wouldn't notice. And maybe that's why it worked. She checked her phone, smiled, the same smile he had, and that's when I knew. It wasn't just him. It was them. I watched her go back inside, and for a second, I almost left. Because part of me still didn't want to see it, didn't want to know everything. But I stayed, because partial truth isn't enough, not when everything is already broken. He came out almost an hour later, relaxed, calm, like he had just been exactly where he wanted to be. He didn't rush, didn't look around, didn't act guilty, because to him, this wasn't wrong. This was normal. And that's when something shifted again. Because it wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was disrespect. Complete. Total. And that's harder to forgive. Not that I was planning to. The next step was easy. Too easy. I found her. People always leave traces. Online, social, professional. It took me less than an hour. Her name, her job, her life, and then something I didn't expect. A photo of the two of them together, not hidden, not secret, smiling, like they weren't doing anything wrong, like I didn't exist. I stared at it for a long time because that photo, that one moment, told me everything. This wasn't just physical. This wasn't just convenience. This was a second life, a full one, and I was the part he kept quiet, the part he tolerated, the part he planned to replace. That realization should have broken me, but it didn't. It sharpened me, because now I wasn't dealing with confusion or doubt or emotion. I was dealing with facts, clear, unavoidable, and facts are easier to work with. I went back to the apartment that night before him, sat in the same place, same silence, and when he walked in, I smiled the same way I always did, and he smiled back because he had no idea. Not yet. And that was the most dangerous part, because now I knew everything and he knew nothing. And that's not a fair game. Not anymore. I could have confronted him right there that night. I had everything: the messages, the location, her, the truth. Most people would have. They need that moment, the explosion, the shouting, the tears. But I didn't, because confrontation gives them something, a chance, a version of the story they can control, a way to twist it, to minimize it, to turn you into the problem. And I wasn't going to give him that, not anymore. So I stayed quiet, and that confused him. I could see it in the way he looked at me, just a little longer, like he felt something had changed, but couldn't prove it. Good. Let him feel that, because for the first time, he wasn't in control. I was. The next few days, I started preparing, not emotionally, practically. I made copies of everything: messages, photos, dates, backups, multiple, because once you move forward, there's no second chance. You either do it right or you lose everything, and I wasn't losing anything else. I watched him more closely, not to catch him, I already had, but to understand him, how careful he was, how careless he thought he could be. That's the difference. People who think they won't get caught stop hiding, and that's when they make mistakes. Small ones, but enough. He started leaving earlier, coming home later, texting more openly, not because he was smarter, because he felt safe. Safe in his lie, safe in his routine, safe in the version of me he thought he knew. The one who wouldn't question, wouldn't leave. And that was his biggest mistake, because I had already left. He just didn't know it yet. The plan didn't come all at once. It built itself, piece by piece. First, I separated things. Financially, accounts, access, control. Quietly, carefully. He didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He wasn't paying attention to me anymore. That made it easy. Then I created distance. Not obvious, not dramatic, just enough. Less talking, less reacting, less presence. And he filled that space himself, with her, with his second life, with the thing he thought mattered more. And the more he did that, the easier everything became, because now I wasn't competing, I was observing. And then he made the mistake, the one that changes everything. He left his laptop open, not just unlocked, open right in front of me. And this time, it wasn't just messages, it was everything. Photos, emails, reservations, plans, not just meetings, a future with her, trips, ideas. Like I was already gone, like I had already been replaced. I scrolled slowly, carefully, not reacting, because this was evidence, complete, undeniable, and more than enough. I closed the laptop exactly the way I found it and sat there, breathing, because now there was no doubt left, no hesitation, just one question. Not why, not how, just how do I end this the right way? Because I wasn't going to hurt him, not the way people expect. I was going to do something worse. I was going to make sure he felt it, slowly, clearly, completely. And when it was over, there would be nothing left. I didn't rush. That was the difference. Anyone can react, anyone can explode, but not everyone can wait. And waiting is what gives you control. The first thing I did was nothing. At least that's what it looked like. On the surface, everything stayed the same. I still made coffee, still asked about his day, still smiled when he spoke, and he believed it completely. Because that's the thing about people who lie. They don't expect silence. They expect confrontation. They prepare for it. They rehearse excuses, but silence makes them comfortable, and comfort makes them careless. So I gave him exactly that, comfort, while I started removing everything underneath him, slowly, carefully, one piece at a time. I started with the accounts, not dramatically, not in a way that would trigger alarms, just small changes, access, permissions, visibility, things he wouldn't notice, but things that mattered. Then I moved to something else. His routine. I knew it perfectly. Every habit, every pattern, every moment he thought was his own. And I used that. I timed everything. When he was out, when he was distracted, when he was with her. Because those were the moments he wasn't looking. And that's when everything changed. The more I did, the more confident he became. He laughed more, relaxed more, stayed out longer, because in his mind, everything was fine, better than fine, safe, and that's exactly where I needed him. The first shift came 2 weeks later. He noticed something, not everything, just enough. A delay, a missing detail, something slightly off. What happened to this account? His voice was casual, confused, not worried. Not yet. I looked up, calm. Oh, I reorganized a few things. Simple, normal. He nodded, accepted it instantly. Because why wouldn't he? I had never given him a reason not to, and that was the irony. The trust he broke was the same trust I used to break him. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Because taking something from someone isn't enough. Not if you want them to feel it. You have to let them realize it's gone. Piece by piece. Too late. The second shift was bigger. Not financially. Personally, I stopped being available. Not completely. Just enough. I didn't answer right away. Didn't react the same. Didn't fill the silence anymore. And he noticed that too. What's going on with you? For the first time, he sounded unsure. I shrugged. Nothing. And that word hit him harder than anything else, because now he was the one outside the truth, not me. Days passed, then another week, and the cracks started showing, not in me, in him. More questions, more tension, because slowly his two worlds were colliding, the one he built with her and the one he thought he still had with me, and they didn't match anymore. He couldn't control both, not anymore, and that's when I made the final move. Not loud, not dramatic, just precise. I took everything he thought was secure and made it visible, not to him, to the right people, the ones who would care, the ones who would ask questions. And then I stepped back, because once the truth starts moving, you don't control it anymore. It controls everything. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been too easy, too clean, too simple. No, it unfolded slowly, exactly the way I planned it. The first real break came on a Monday. I remember because he called me. twice, back to back. I let it ring the first time, answered the second. What did you do? No greeting, no hesitation, just that. His voice wasn't angry. Not yet. It was something else. Tight, uncertain, like something underneath him was starting to move. I leaned back, calm. What do you mean? Silence. Then, someone contacted my office. There it was. The first crack. I said nothing. Let him continue. They're asking questions about accounts, about transfers, about things that don't make sense. Of course they were. That was the point. I don't know what you're talking about. And for the first time, he didn't believe me. Not completely. There was a pause. A long one. Then, are you serious right now? I smiled, because it was inevitable. I think you should figure out what's going on. And I hung up. I didn't go back that night, or the next, because I wasn't part of that life anymore. 3 days later, he showed up at my door, unannounced. Of course he did, because when control disappears, people panic. He looked different, not broken, but close. What is this? Holding his phone, messages, emails, consequences. I didn't invite him in, didn't move. I just stood there, looking at him the way he used to look at me, like something had changed, and there was no going back. You should read them. I have. Then you already know. His jaw tightened. This is insane. You can't just... I didn't do anything. Calm, even. That's the problem. He froze, confused, because he was still thinking in simple terms, cause and effect. But this was different. I didn't create anything. I just made sure people could see it. Silence, heavy, because deep down, he understood. He knew. You went through my things. Deflection. Expected. I shook my head. You left everything out in the open, and I paid attention. That hit him hard, because now this wasn't about betrayal. It was about consequence, and consequence doesn't care how you feel. This is going to ruin everything. And there it was. Fear. Real. Visible. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a second, I saw it. The moment it all caught up to him. Everything he thought was safe was never safe at all. It already did. Quiet. Final. Why? That was the only question left. I held his gaze. Didn't look away. Because this time, he was getting the truth. You chose it. Simple, clear. You chose her. You chose that life. You chose to pretend I wasn't part of it. Each word landed exactly where it needed to. So don't act surprised when it all becomes real. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Because there was nothing left to argue. No version where he was the victim. Just reality. Raw. Unavoidable. And for the first time, he had to face it. Without control. Without distance. Without a second life to hide in. I stepped back just enough. This is over. Not loud. Not angry. Just final. And that was it. No shouting. No scene. Just truth. and consequences. I closed the door slowly, quietly, and for a moment, I just stood there, listening, not to him, not to anything outside, just the silence. Because for the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt clear. And that's the thing about revenge. People think it's about destroying someone, but it's not. It's about balance, about making sure the truth is seen, felt, understood. And once it is, you don't need anything else, because they already lost everything that mattered. And this time, there was nothing left to hide behind.